This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi, and my guest today is Dianne Hartsock, and she's a local writer who's here to talk about her new book. So, welcome, Dianne.
Hello. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, now that we're finally launched here.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about you. I know that you said you recently have published a book.
Yes, it's called Alex. It is a paranormal suspense book.
Paranormal.
Yeah, paranormal.
Okay.
Yeah, because he is a psychic.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have to call it something, so it's paranormal. It's not a romance. It's just like, I don't know. What else? What else do you want me to say?
Well, maybe what we can do is talk a little bit about, what the book is about. Maybe you can describe it a little bit.
Okay. Like I said, he's a psychic. He.
This is Alex.
This is Alex.
Okay.
Yes.
He's a teenager?
He's 20 years old.
Okay.
He did grow up with his mother. She was an abusive mother, single mom, didn't quite know how to raise a child on her own. So he grew up in isolation, abuse, so that kind of made him develop his psychic abilities. Being so alone, he needed an outlet.
Okay.
So he used his imagination a lot, and it kind of developed the psychic powers. So in the story, he starts dreaming someone's calling for help. It's this little boy calling for help. And he could hear him in his mind. He started having visions about him, so he goes looking for this voice, and his friends all think maybe he's crazy, or maybe he might be involved in hiding this child or something. But he finally finds this boy, rescues him, and it goes on. Later on, he starts hearing other people calling for help. And it turns out there's a serial killer on the loose who's killing women in the area. And he is hearing them calling for help. And through the whole story, he's helping the police trying to track him down. But sometimes the police think maybe he's involved. And because, it's hard to believe someone is actually psychic.
Right.
So I don't know. So it's a whole story of, do they believe him? Do they not believe him? Some people do, some people don't. How he deals with that. And then he's also just a 20-year-old boy trying to have a life. And he gets married in the book.
Really?
Yeah, and he goes on. All these things happen to him. And at the end, there's a happy ending. He solves the crime and all this. And he has some friends. But I don't know. It's just kind of complicated storyline.
How did you come up with the storyline? What made you think of an abused boy who's psychic and a serial killer? That's a lot.
What it started with is I had written a fantasy story. And I really liked the main character in my fantasy story. I really liked him. And in the fantasy book, they all think they have magic, but actually it's a race of people who are psychic. So I took that character, because it's, in the fantasy, it's back in like almost my medieval days. So I took the main character from that and said, well, what if I put him in a modern setting? How would this work? So that's where I came up with Alex. Like, okay, he's this little psychic kid. How would he deal with life? How would people deal with him? What kind of job would he have? Who would marry him? And so that's how it kind of all tumbled into the story of Alex.
So how does his relationship with his mother evolve as he gets older?
Well, he's only with her till he's 12.
Okay.
So yeah, he's pretty much, she keeps him locked in the house. He doesn't meet anyone else. And it's just like in a physical abuse and emotional abuse. And I don't know, he always tries to please her, and she does homeschool him, so he can read and write and knows math and stuff. But it's not until the very end of the book, because a lot of the book is in flashbacks, going back to his time with his mother and how this is affecting what's happening to him now as his past. And he remembers at the very end that she actually did say at one time that she loved him, which he had blocked from his mind because he was just so mad at her that she had treated him so badly, he wanted to forget that part. But by the end of the book, he realizes, well, she just did the best she could. She was mentally unstable and just didn't know how to deal with the child. So by the end of the book, he realizes, well, okay, he can forgive her and move on with his life from there.
Well, what was it like to try to, for you, the process of writing a character and then doing flashbacks and the psychic piece? I guess to some degree, as a writer, every writer's psychic. because you know what's happening, and so it's just a matter of writing that into the character. But what was that like, trying to make sure that it seemed, believable, that he didn't know too much?
It was kind of interesting, because to me the story almost wrote itself.
Okay.
I'd be going along and he'd be doing something, and I'm like, oh, but this would be a good part to have like a flashback of something that happened to his past that would relate to what was happening now. So then I'd go back and write that flashback in there. And then go on to where he had left off, and he'd go along in the storyline, and then something else would happen, like, oh, he could have a flashback here. That would make a good connection. So I didn't like write all the flashbacks first and then fill it in. I just kind of just flowed all the way to the end. And it worked really well. I just did it. I don't know exactly how.
So you feel like you really got to know this character over time as you're writing, like when the flashback sort of comes to you, it's almost like you're learning more about the character as well.
Definitely. And all his friends, it's kind of how are they relating. I had a really good editor I worked with too, who when I had the book finished and then started with an editor, and she would help me like fill out the scenes a little bit more. At one point she had me go back and write a little history on Alex, how was it with his mother, and what are his dreams and his plans, and what does he want for the future. And that's not in the book, but it helped me really learn the character more and go from there.
And that's the cover of the book that the audience is seeing now. And that's a really nice cover. Did you have anything to do with creating that?
Well, with this particular publisher, I was able to give my ideas of, like, I wanted Alex on the cover. I wanted to have like a spooky bridge, because that's a big part of this. The book is this bridge that he's by his home that he's always crossing and things. So I was able to put that in there. But they came up with the cover themselves. So.
Where's the book set?
It is in a small town in Colorado.
Okay.
But it's called Oakton. It's kind of by Fort Collins, which is a real city, but I kind of made up a little town in that area.
And you said that you'd lived in Colorado for quite a number of years?
Yes, I was there for 10 years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a beautiful place. And when I first wrote Alex, I didn't really have a setting, like where did he live exactly. But Colorado just had the perfect weather and the right areas and stuff, so it worked out really well. So I went back and then said, oh, he's actually in Colorado. And
so does what was I going to say? Does the setting play a big part in the book, in the plot?
It does, because they live a little outside. It's a small town, and they live down a country road by themselves, forest all around them. And like I say, he has to cross this little bridge over a river, and the river plays a big part in the book. So it plays a big role just because a lot happens right there in their little house and little area.
I always kind of wonder about this when somebody's writing a book, if they're not actually sort of writing from memory, from a place that they know really well, how you keep those details straight. If you're creating sort of a town in your mind, do you draw everything out on paper, or are you actually using some details that are familiar to you so that you don't lose track of it?
I have a lot of notebooks.
Okay.
And I don't actually draw, because I can't draw at all. I just write it down, like, okay, this is his house, and he's like 2 miles out of town, so then I write down what the house looks like, what the rooms look like. A lot of it I just keep in my mind, too. It's like I just picture the house, so I know if it goes into the room, there it is. The town itself, it's kind of like any small town. You have your post office and the police station, the fire department. I mean, everything is kind of set up.
So it's a pretty small town?
Yeah, probably smaller than McMinnville, maybe a Newburgh size.
And what about the serial killer? Is the serial killer in this small town?
Yeah, he owns a farm outside of town, like maybe another 5 miles.
The killer does?
Yeah.
Is that giving something away?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, because no, I think we're okay.
Okay. Well, I just wondered,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking, a serial killer, how easy would that be to conceal the fact that you're a serial killer in a small town? I guess it depends on how smart you are.
Right, yeah, exactly right. And he hadn't been doing it for very long. It's like he was a brand new serial killer. He just kind of, like I said, I don't want to give the whole plot away of the story.
No,
but
of course.
Yeah, so he lives in this town, but that's not where he's been killing people. He usually leaves to go to, like Fort Collins is a big city.
Okay.
He goes in there to do his killing. And it just happens that, Alex is, because sometimes he'll take the people back to his farm and kill them there. And then Alex, these are the people Alex is hearing with his psychic powers that they're calling for help, and he hears this, or he just hears them screaming or whatever. And eventually it leads him to go to this farm, and that's where he first meets him.
So how difficult is it to write about a serial killer? Was it surprisingly easy?
Well, you know, I read a lot of like murder mysteries and suspenseful books, and I like medical thrillers. So I kind of, I just like those kind of mysteries. So it wasn't fun to write the way he hurts people, but I don't know, I try to make it real. Like, these things really do happen. You can watch the news or read a newspaper, you're going to see these kind of stories. So I just took ideas from real life and say, well, this is what this guy did, and it's not nice, but it's a fact, you know, that this happens.
How long have you been writing?
I've been writing forever, as long as I can remember writing stories. And I always thought I was fairly good at it, but then it was probably about 5 years ago I really started to take it seriously, and I been working with editors, and I realized how much I didn't know before compared to now, and I think I've come a long way in my writing. So I'd say, like, for 5 years I've really been serious about it, and getting up every morning and doing a little writing and doing some research, and yeah.
So is that kind of your routine, that you write every day?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't always get a chance to write something creative. It's usually, right now I'm so busy promoting the book that a lot of my time goes to that. And I'm really happy when I can actually get back to writing a story. So I'm hoping, you know, because the book just came out like July 15th.
Okay.
So I'm hoping things kind of slow down a little where I can get back to writing other things again. But spend a lot of time promoting, especially like online promoting.
Are you in a writer's group?
Yes, I have a writer's group. Actually, several. The computer's wonderful. I just joined so many writing groups.
That are online writing groups?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that you're not going and reading your work aloud, that sort of thing?
No. I've tried doing reading or writing groups with, like, actual people. I'm such a private writer. I do really hard with critiques when people critique my work. It's hard. It's easier for me to just sit down and write it myself and then send it to people I don't know, and they can read it over and give me advice. Or usually you have, like, even 10 separate people reading the story and then get back to you with their ideas. And it's less personal that way, so I can take it better when they criticize it or say something's really bad. I'm not like, oh, I'm so mad at you. It's more like, I'm mad, but I can't do anything about it because you're not in the same room with me. So.
And it's almost like, I guess in a way that, not that it's bad, it's maybe that, because this is what I would think, is that as a writer, you're so familiar with your characters and you're so familiar with the plot and the town and everything else that sometimes you take for granted something that a pair of fresh eyes coming in would say, well, I don't know why he would do that or why he would say that, because you haven't developed maybe the motivation enough. So somebody else could come in and what seems really obvious to you as a writer may seem to me quite unclear. And so getting that feedback now, at an early stage would probably be, not so that you did anything wrong. It's just that it's like a lacks clarity, perhaps.
Right. And actually, that is probably working with editors is my favorite part of writing, just for that reason. Because, like I said, they teach me so much. And even the writing groups, mostly I would write a chapter and send it to them to read, and they get back to me. But like you say, some things I haven't explained clearly enough, or they say, this is great, but we want more of this emotion, so you have to bring it out that way. And it helps to do it right up front rather than try to get through the whole book and then go back and piecemeal things together. So yeah, I would recommend a writing group to anybody who wants to write, because they really help.